Welcome to Talking Grit, a Detroit Lions podcast. Powered by the Monroe County Reporters. Here are your hosts, Jason Harwood and Jacob Litton.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Talking Grit. I'm Jason Harwood, and with me is my congested co-host, Jacob Litton. The NFL owners' meetings are underway. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are both talking. They had some good interviews today, which we'll get to a little bit later on. Brad Holmes himself let loose some nuggets that I found definitely interesting. I know Jacob did too, so we'll talk about that. But there's
Let
plenty
loose
of
some nuggets.
Yeah, you like that?
Why? Like starting
Some
off
interesting
quick, okay?
nuggets. Chicken nuggets, right?
Yeah.
Sweet and
Letting
sour
off some
sauce.
nuggets.
All the sweet and sour sauce you can handle. All right. So Jacob, I know you're sick, but how you feeling, man?
I've been better. It's okay.
Yeah.
Congested. I'm still with it.
Yeah.
Jason's probably going to take this time to try to make fun of me and, pour it on. So we'll see.
I don't want to kick you while you're down. I make fun of you when you're healthy.
That's where you live.
Yeah, just like where my opponents, I want them to be fully healthy so I can feel good about myself when I make fun of them. That's where I'm at with you.
I
But
don't believe that.
speaking of kicking people while they're down, we got to talk about it. I know this is a Lions podcast, but the Pistons game last night. Were you screaming at the TV as loud as I was?
Oh no, I wasn't screaming at the TV. I was fully focused. I'm laser eyed. I'm trying to see as soon as it, they had the foul before that. Isaiah Stewart had the tech. You felt like something was coming. That's just, it's nice because that's Pistons basketball, right? It's getting physical again. Not backing down for anybody, but the games are starting to look like that. And it seemed like it was going to escalate. But it was just weird that it escalated with such a weird, like almost non-foul from Ron Holland.
I know. Total overreaction, and then we end up getting, 3 people kicked out, 3 players and then our coach too. And I know JB Bickerstaff, he complains a lot, so I'm sure that they're quick to throw him out because they're just tired of getting yelled at the whole time. But man, I I don't know how I got to think that DiVincenzo is gonna get a suspension just from I he was the worst out of the bunch in my opinion.
Yes, right. They're not wanting to back down their home and everything too, but escalated when it didn't really have to.
Yeah, I'm sure you liked when Isaiah Stewart was just pointing out, just dragging his finger around the Detroit jersey.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah,
I
like
was like,
we're
put that
friends.
on a T-shirt right now.
I know exactly. I have my qualms with Isaiah Stewart just because I think that sometimes he just um, gets too emotional and gets wrapped up in it, and sometimes I think in the playoffs it could cost us. But he's the enforcer.
Exactly in today's NBA like that, there's usually like one guy on the team that's kind of like the enforcer, just somebody. It's good to have somebody like that. It's what Draymond Green has been for Golden State forever. But
Yeah.
Now the whole team seems to be chip on the shoulder, acting like that. So I know Isaiah Stewart gets a lot of crap. They are very quick to blow that whistle and call technical fouls on him, which is not always fair, but he knows the reputation that he has and he's embracing it. So,
I know.
it is what it is. I don't think he was bothered by it. I saw they said they ejected him. He hopped on a commercial flight back to Detroit.
Oh, really?
That's what I heard. I have not confirmed that, but there was a story that said him and Ron Holland actually they did not want to stay around and watch. Yeah, right.
Yeah, especially the way that game ended. It looked really good for a little bit, and then they beat up our third stringers, which
never stop fighting though.
No,
did not lay down.
No, if you're a person like me that harkens back to the Bad Boys days, this is the closest I've seen. I mean, we had the working whatever, the Chauncey Billup era. What was that called?
Going to work.
Going to work, yeah. And I love them. But this harkens, I mean, Isaiah Stewart is just in your face. You're not going to get under the hoop and not get some sort of contact. I like it. It's just I don't think the rest of the NBA is ready for it, and the refs certainly aren't going to have any patience for it. But let's move on to another hardworking team in the NFL. The Lions made some moves this week. First one I want to talk about is re-signing Coyote Awosika. kind of a low level move, but it does give us a little bit of depth at the guard position, which I'm okay with. And does it move the needle at all for you, Jacob?
Yeah, I mean, I like Awashika. So, he made a couple starts for us last year. He's a guard. He's able to play left or right side if we need to slot him in, especially, no more Zeitler. So, we're going to be leaning on Mahogany a little bit more. So, I think that, good depth piece for us.
Yep.
Plus, he's a veteran, 37 games, 7 starts, and he held his own in the couple starts he had last year. It wasn't like, the fall off was too great in those games. Obviously, not as good on a talent level as Zeitler. The other game was when it was the Seahawks game when Ragnow was hurt. Graham moved over to center, and then you had Awashika playing over there. But yeah, you need somebody like that you can throw in and trust. He's not going to blow the game for us. So
no, he looked a little rough. That first drive with the Vikings was rough. I think he had 2 like holding penalty, or he had 2 penalties right off in that first drive, which kind of set us back a little bit. But for someone that already knows our team, knows the offense, it's all right. He's a depth piece. I mean, he can also sit on the practice squad. He's probably not going to get scooped up by any team, because if another team wanted him, they would have signed him. He was free to sign for anyone for a couple weeks here. So,
right,
but take it. Another kind of sad news today. John Cominsky retired, cited medical reasons on that. I was kind of hoping to get another shot. It was going to be a long shot for him to make the team, but I I I like John Cominsky. He's just one of those guys that works really hard. I liked his attitude.
he was a good Lions football player, right?
Hmm.
The Comish.
Yeah, I
He,
2 years ago, like it seemed like Hutch played better with the Kaminsky on the field. I think Kaminsky was one of those guys that probably didn't get enough credit when he was here, just because he used to do the dirty work that didn't show up on the stat sheet. But and then unfortunately injuries derailed his season. But it was going to be hard for him. He was repping with like the 3rd team last year in training camp. So I'm not. He probably would have played had he not been injured. He would have certainly, he would have got the field because we were playing with 3rd stringers. But um, he might not have made it out of the gate, and someone else might have scooped him up if he was healthy last year.
yeah, he would have had another. I mean, I think he played 16 games and started 11. I think the year before that. So I
Hmm.
mean, it definitely would have looked like that again. He was the first or the second one to fall to the injury bug. So Michael Badgley got hurt on the first day of practice. Then Cominsky, that was the second, I think the second or first day of pads where Cominsky went out.
Yeah.
It was just a sign of terrible things to come.
Yeah.
But right after he went out is when we signed Pat O'Connor. So I mean that probably would have never came to fruition if not for the Cominsky injury happening.
True. Yep. I mean, that is a positive way of looking at it, that Pat O'Connor came on this team and didn't think that we were going to need him, but he ended up playing a pretty good role for us after the injury bug hit us pretty hard, and played well enough to earn another chance at making the team next season. So, but,
Exactly.
so I'll
Cominsky's
I'm
a good dude though. So I mean,
mm-hmm.
Seemed like he was just ready to hang it up. Too much to overcome. He battled back. From what it sounded like, he was battling all year. He knew, if he was able to get healthy, he was going to get some playing time and he was going to get his chance.
Mm-hmm.
So I figure he probably the same kind of mentality as Hutch, just trying to work hard and trying to get back and try to get healthy. End up being way too much for him, and he's just not able to get back.
Yeah,
Unfortunate.
He's one of those guys that got drafted by the Falcons, never really played up to his potential there. Latched on with the Lions, got to a second contract with us, never really hit probably what we were expecting in the second contract. But for Kamish, he got, I don't know how many starts he ended up with, double digit starts, like you said. He showed that he could play in the NFL, and for him, that was probably, all he needed. He showed that he could start in the NFL.
Right.
All right. Next kind of big news. Pride of Detroit put out a nice article. I implore you to read this whole article if you're interested in more than the cliff notes that we're going to share here. But Kalif Raymond, it's been found out that he restructured his contract. And it's not so much a big deal that he restructured his contract, because I don't think it really affected whether he was going to be on this team or not this year. I think he was going to be on there anyways, or not any if he didn't resign this. But essentially, they pretty much guaranteed his whole contract. So he's going to play this year. It's going to cost another 500 grand on the cap this year, but saved 1.4 million dollars in dead money next year. So this all points to me as the Lions are pinching every penny that they can, you know, to re-sign their guys that they're going to need. And this is just another thing that they do. I mean, it helped Raymond out because he's guaranteed to get all his money now. There's a chance that we could cut him and he wouldn't get all his money, so it helps him out in the here and now. I think he ended up losing maybe like 900,000 total on the deal, but he could also sign a new contract next year and make that money up.
Yeah, this just seems like one of those chess moves, right? We're making a small piece with the small move with the idea there's a bigger move coming.
Yeah. I think that it's all about having money for next year for, Hutch and all the extensions.
And we're going to get into it talking about Brad Holmes, what he said, but I mean, he cut and dry. He pretty much said that. He was very vocal, very upfront about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And this is just another they say one thing, but they're proving it with their actions about doing all these. I mean, $1.5 million is not like a ton of money, right? When you're talking about a $300 million cap, but all that will come into play next year for sure. Anything else you want to talk about on that Kalif deal, or?
No, I mean, I think it's a small move.
Yeah.
Implications for the future, but nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing
so, yeah, the NFL owners meetings are happening, and we're going to talk about, get into what Brad Holmes had to say in a little bit. But one of the first thing, I think this was even done before the NFL owners meeting come out. They're going to ban the nose wipe celebration, which I'm going to play right now. I'm going to put this up on the screen here. Give me a second here.
Just think CeeDee Lamb first down.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to share this.
I don't know how many other people. I mean, I've seen other people do it before, but
yeah. See, it's like he just like kind of wipes his nose like he's got allergies. He does, it's a CeeDee Lamb celebration.
That one wasn't the nose wipe.
No, he's saying goodbye. That's saying goodbye to the nose wipe celebration right there. So, but it's. Why do you think they deserve something that maybe old man Jason doesn't understand what that means? Like the nose wipe celebration.
It's a gang sign.
Okay.
But the funny thing about that is I did not know that either. Like I was out of touch with it, and I'm like, why is he? What does that mean? Watching Cowboys games and stuff like that, he's doing it all the time. So what does that mean? What is that from? Is it a movie? Like what is it? Turns out it's gang related.
Okay. Well, I guess I kind of understand why they ban it, but sometimes
but just like you said, I don't think enough people are making that connection or seeing. I don't know who. I guess little kids on the street playing football, trying to be like CeeDee Lamb, throwing up gang signs when they don't know it. Potentially, maybe you're trying to stop something like that happening. I
think we get too smart for our own good, and
right.
It's like I don't.
Who told them what that meant?
Exactly.
None of them knew.
Well, it's the Jets kids owners. He told Woody Allen whatever his name is, the owner of the Jets. He's informed about Madden ratings and also possible gang related signs. So that's probably where it came from. So my question is, Jacob. All right. So he does that with first downs. When I was younger, there was hardly anybody celebrating first downs. Now it's pretty much a given. Anyone celebrates first downs. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Are you indifferent to it? What's your thoughts on just first down celebrations in general?
It's one of those adrenaline things. Obviously, like I'm not in the NFL doing it, but even playing flag football and just doing different stuff like that, when you get that adrenaline, you get that excitement like that. That's why, just the finger point, even if you get it fancier with the finger pointing and everything like that feels good too. I'm okay with the first down celebrations. I guess you can't get too extra with it just because, you don't have as much time as when you score a touchdown.
Yeah.
You get a first down, you got to, you do your little thing, then you're back on. You can't go all out for celebrations, but finger pointing or like of the variation, I guess as long as it's not too close to your face, this is a no-no.
Apparently. Yeah, you can't shoot an arrow. No gun.
I don't
gun
understand.
signs.
Yes, I like the arrow. I'm okay with the gun thing too.
Yeah.
I get why they're like, okay, yeah, we don't want that, but the arrow, come on.
I don't know.
The guns, maybe I can see when you score, you get a first down and then they stand up and they're right in the linebacker's face, just like pop, pop, pop.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe yes, that's not sportsmanlike or whatever. The arrow, I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's too much of
How do you
watching
feel about
Barry.
it?
I don't know. I'm okay with it. I mean, if people want to do it, obviously they want to do it. I just think it gets too much. And also I get really tired when the game's the game's over essentially and they're still celebrating a first down or they're down by like 30 and they're celebrating first down. Like just act like you've done it before. That's where I get that's where I'm at with a lot of it. Like we're celebrating every single first down and I don't know if it
But
I
the
don't know.
Lions do celebrate first downs.
Oh, they
but
do.
There's also a time and a place, and I feel like we don't have anyone on the team that would be. I can't remember what team it was for. If it was the Steelers, but I remember it was Chase Claypool. Do you remember him?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he was like he had the infamous where it was like they were down by like a touchdown or they're down by 6 or something like that. They have no timeouts. They throw him the ball. He gets the first down, and he wastes like 13 seconds doing a first down celebration and pointing.
Yeah.
And I think he still has the ball in his hand. Like the center's trying to get the ball from him. That's such a terrible, terrible look.
Well,
So yes,
I mean,
I get that. You don't ever want that on your team.
no, it shows where your motives are though, right? Where you're more thinking about yourself than the
Or
team
you
or the
just are
game.
completely unaware of the game situation, right? You don't care about the situation. You care about your catch. Like that's yeah.
Yeah, I think part of it, for me at least, with celebrations and all that, is I love the way Barry did it. Ran to the end zone, gave the ref the ball. I think
Okay.
that is an
Okay,
ultimate.
boomer.
Hey, that's an ultimate like I've done this before. I don't need to celebrate. This no big deal type move. I like that. That's baller, man. I mean, that just shows that.
That doesn't rub it in the other team's face the same way.
No, it doesn't. I mean, what is it about that? I mean, for some of those guys, when Amon did the headstand and all that stuff, I don't think that that's rubbing it in the other team's face. That's just
No, I
getting
mean
in the
it's
end zone.
fun, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
also, I mean, it does get in their head to a certain extent.
Hmm.
Him doing a hand, him doing the headstand was not about like, oh wait till they see this,
Yeah.
that wasn't
No.
that. But I mean, it's just that was a quick celebration.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fun, Jason. People like to have
It
fun.
is fun. It is, and I'm okay with it. I'm not touchdown celebrations are different than first down celebrations for me. First
When
downs
we get to the
happen all game.
draft, when we're on the field, I'll make you do a headstand. We'll take a picture for our Twitter.
I don't think you get the medical staff ready then for when I crash to the ground. You get some.
The
I
neck
gotta
injury.
I gotta get those tape on my if I
Yeah,
wear
the
short
turf
sleeve
tape.
shirts, yeah, turf tape. I almost be sitting there uncomfortable all day. I'm trying to drink my beer and it's hurting when I'm bending my arm. That I'm gonna make you feed it to me.
Yeah.
Or get me one of those beer helmet things and then I could just
There
suck
you
it through
go.
a straw. We'll have that as a backup plan. I do like that.
I could see you with the beer helmet. You don't already have one of those?
No, I don't. I don't. You could see me with one of those. Yeah, that's me.
Right.
That's like a Zach Galifianakis. You know who
Yeah.
that is, right? Yeah, that's it. Just I
Yes.
picture him with one of those on. So, is there any celebrations that you would ban? Are there some that you don't like or you think is not good for the game of football? Is there anything that you would ban?
I don't think so. I mean, here's the thing. I guess I don't understand the banning for most of like the gun thing. I understand why they would ban that. When you're when JMO is like humping the ground, I can get why, maybe we don't want that to be on TV and everything like that. So I understand where that's coming from too, but I guess, there's nothing that sticks out to me that's like, oh, I wish they would do away with that. Dunking the ball over the goalpost as a 15-yard penalty, that's ridiculous.
Well, I think that's because it was bending the field goal post and like not making it flat, and then they got to get out and level it up or whatever. I can understand that, especially when you got guys that can't clear it. Like Calvin Johnson had no problem clearing it. You have other guys that have a little trouble clearing it, and then they're grabbing on it. That being said, I loved when JMO did it. The night they put Calvin in the Pride of Detroit there, in the Ring of Honor. I love that. The other thing that goes in there, the sack celebrations too kind of get thrown into this mix. And I get why they do that, but I always think of Stephen Tulloch, right? That blew out his ACL doing the
Yes.
celebration.
Yep.
And I was like, man, I have PTSD with that because I was like so excited that they sacked, was it Aaron Rodgers that he sacked or it was, I can't remember, but he,
I feel like it was against Green Bay, but I didn't remember it being
well,
a sack. I
yeah,
didn't know if
because
it was like
wasn't it?
just a huge stop or what.
No, because I think he did the discount double check. I think that's what he did. He
It
jumped
was
and
like a
did that.
big, a big
Yeah,
variation of that.
yeah.
Just
So
the
I
way he
think that.
stomped on the ground.
So I have PTSD with that. I also think that I've seen like Zadarius Smith do one like late in the game, and he's on the ground, and I'm afraid he's going to get an offside penalty or something like that because they're trying to get up to the line. I felt like that happened in the Chicago game, and I don't know. It. I'm okay with celebrations, but also sometimes I think they just get a little bit too crazy and wrapped up in it, and I don't. I'd rather them wasting their energy on the field as opposed to doing something that they're going to get injured with.
Right. That
That's
was Stephen Tulloch, Aaron Rodgers sack.
yeah. That's
Tore
what I
his
thought.
ACL.
Yeah. I was like was it Dre Greenlaw that jumped on the field in the Super Bowl and like he was
Yeah,
just
that
coming on
wasn't
the
jumped on the
field.
field. He was just
Yeah.
running onto the field.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I
Oh
hate
man.
watching that. And they've got everybody mic'd up and that was terrible.
No. I don't want anyone to get injured, especially like that Super Bowl, man. Everything on the line. That sucked. I don't know if you remember back in the day, Joe Horn, wide receiver for the Saints. Is that like in
When he
your
got the Sharpie out of the goalpost?
Well, I was thinking he got the cell phone out from underneath the goalpost and pretended to, and he actually called his mom from the football field. I don't know if you saw that.
No, that
Yeah,
was probably the same year. Probably
yeah.
really close games.
Terrell Owens had one of the coolest. So when he flipped out the Sharpie and signed the football as he was going down, I did like that. I think that's cool. Gave it to a fan or whatever. I like
Terrell
that.
Owens stole the
Yeah.
kids' popcorn.
Yep. And then, but one that, Terrell Owens, when he was, went to the 49ers, that was Terrell Owens, right? That
He started with
went,
the 49ers.
yeah, started with 49ers and went to the Cowboys. And I mean, he was celebrating against the
Eagles.
Cowboys and was it the Eagles? Yes, that's right.
He
Because
went to
they
the
would win
Eagles
the
and the
divisional.
Cowboys.
And then he did the celebration on the Cowboys, like
That
went
was
to
when
the
he
star.
played for the 49ers. He might have
Okay.
been like a rookie, or he was
Yeah.
like younger. Yeah, he went to the
Yeah.
star and got smoked.
Yes, that's crazy. Yeah, that's very memorable. But yeah, I don't know if there's any that I would ban. I'm okay with them getting out some of the taunting stuff because just from a sportsmanship for kids and stuff like that. But the person and the competitor inside me says, you know what, if you don't want me to celebrate in your face, then stop it.
Exactly.
So I get it. I could go either way on that. But I understand why they're going to do it. When you don't want high school kids doing it. You're going to they're not as mature. It's going to lead to fights, and it's just you know, nothing good can happen from it. But uh, when Amon Ra, he'll celebrate. Amon Ra will do the first down. He'll just steal whatever the wide receiver on the other team does, and he just like kind of mocks
Yeah.
it on his side. So I do like that, but I guess that's me being inconsistent here.
You've gone back and forth debated yourself for the last 10 minutes, so
That's all right. I know. I do
gotta
that a
keep the
lot.
integrity of the game.
I know.
But I do like rubbing it in their face.
I do think it's baller though. Just score a touchdown and throw it to the ref and be like, this touchdown doesn't even mean that much to me. But I get it. Those guys like to have fun. I mean, that is like, they were really hard NFL had a really hard stance on that a while and wouldn't let any only the player that scored a touchdown could celebrate. Now the whole team can get involved, and they can come up with some cool, fun stuff. But a simple like the one that I liked last year was Dave Montgomery's Boy Scout salute. I thought that was cool. I mean, just because my family's
Quick,
Boy
simple.
Scouts, so I liked it. And, it just had a point. It was really cool. He was celebrating something else other than himself, which is really good to see. So I do like stuff like that. When Ezekiel Elliott jumped in the Salvation Army
that was good.
thing, and then he got fined for that, but Salvation Army ended up getting a ton of donations because of that. So, I mean, that's at least
then
something
it became
good
a
came out of that.
tradition.
It did, yeah. And for a while you could only jump into this Lambeau. You could only do the Lambeau leap. Every other stadium you couldn't jump into the stands. You get a penalty. And finally they've allowed that to happen in other stadiums because that was totally unfair.
Yeah, it's much better that they've relaxed these rules and let them celebrate.
Yes, exactly. I think the players like it. It's obvious they practice this stuff because some of them are pretty intricate and
the Vikings defense goes through choreography for some of their stuff. I don't know if you've seen so when they have a turnover, when they have a big play, usually most of the defense is in on it and they all do some sort of course I can't think of anything right now, but different pop culture, different famous scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then their Vikings Twitter, YouTube will usually post the video, and it's always in if it's an away game, they're at the hotel or whatever. And it was Metellus, who was the safety they just had? Cam
Bynum?
Is it Bynum? Yeah. Metellus, Bynum, I think were the two masterminds behind it. And then everybody else, straight up choreography. They're not looking at plays. They're not, looking at offensive schemes. They are practicing the handshake from the Parent Trap before the game.
Nice. Well, that's all right. If our division opponents want to take their time off the football field and do that, that's I'm okay with that. But it's obvious that the Lions have a plan in doing stuff, but theirs tend to not be overly intricate. So,
right.
All right, let's move on. The NFL owners meetings are going on, like we talked about earlier. We're going to start off with Brad Holmes because he talked a lot. It's 30 minutes of local media while he's down there. A lot of interesting. I won't say nuggets because y'all get made fun of. Interesting tidbits. How about that? Can I say tidbits? Do you understand what that is?
I guess. Right.
Okay. All right.
You can't just
he said a lot of interesting things.
Interesting facts.
Quotes.
Points. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
What'd you say earlier? You said he let loose a lot of nuggets. Come on.
I said let loose a lot of interesting nuggets. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not normal. People don't say that.
I know. Well,
I feel like you're purposely putting this stuff in there because I'm going to call you out on.
That is not true, but
Talk like a regular person for once.
I don't do that, so that's fine. I like the way I talk. Don't worry about it.
I bet you do.
At
least somebody does.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to start off with a Brad Helms quote because I think it talked about why we're not spending, why the Lions didn't make a big splash in free agency. So I don't want to get it wrong. So I'm going to just read this quote. It's not the fans' job to know all the details, Holmes said. I don't expect them to understand that. And if I was a fan, as much as I love our fans, I'd be the same way. Hey, splash, get guys, spend the money, let's go. But I just wanted to make sure the fans understand that we're being disciplined in our approach because we're trying to win now and also sustain what we want to do. And I think that's kind of what we've been saying this whole offseason, right, Jacob? I mean, is that what you got? He just put it in a very good way. And I liked it. It came right from Brad Holmes. It wasn't anything. It was a direct quote. We didn't have to kind of deduce anything he was saying. He came right out and said it.
Yeah, there's no look for the hidden meaning or whatever. I mean, and that is what we've talked about all along. That's what it seemed like the plan was. That's what we thought it was going to be. And that's, straight up, that's just what he said it was going to be. And he said also, if anyone didn't get a chance, it's only a 30-minute interview and, a lot of good information in there. But he said, I tried to let the fans know, we're not going to be big spenders because of all the things we have coming up in the future.
Yeah. So it means a lot more of keep your own guys. And he even said it at one point in there that he goes, I know it's not fun when you don't get a new name, but why, but in my head, I'm like, why would you spend money on stuff that you don't know when you have a perfectly good option on the team? So it was a good interview. The other thing I liked when he talked about getting Levi back, he seemed like he was super excited about it. Said basically he did a backflip. And I think that he was just like the rest of us. He couldn't believe he got him back on the deal he did.
Yeah. I mean, that was the one that I said was almost the head scratcher. It's like, how did we get Levi for that dollar amount,
Mm-hmm. And he said that he also said that they tried to extend him back in the fall. That's what he said in the quote. Right. He goes, if I would have thought we would have been able to get this deal, I would have been doing a backflip back in fall when we tried to extend him. So it seemed like they tried to extend him last year. Levi either didn't want to do it during the season, wanted to see how the season went. I don't know that he's got multitude of reasons why he didn't want to do an extension or do an extension back then. But he played the whole season, was healthy. He's probably due for a bigger contract, but yet he's still stuck with the Lions. So I really can't wait for Levi's first interview and then someone ask him about that and if he gives a truthful answer or an honest answer about that.
Yes, definitely. I mean, that it sounded like, they were further apart in dollar amount. If you're right, they may have Levi might have said, I want to focus on the season. I don't want to talk about the contract. Might have told his agent, let's not do that right now. But if they did, which it kind of sounded like, there had to have been some sort of discussions, they probably weren't even close to the dollar amount. So maybe they had to just table it for now because they weren't seeing eye to eye. And now all of a sudden, here we go at a much lower. It still doesn't make sense. At a much lower rate than what he's worth and what everybody else are, everyone's getting around him. So,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, part of me thinks that he had a better options other places, but wanted to come back to Detroit. And Detroit said, "This is what we're willing to sign you for." And Levi kind of bet on himself because he knows that if he has another season like he did last year, where he's fully healthy, but even if he puts up the same stats, he's going to get a lot more money. He just is, and and it's probably not going to be with Detroit because I just don't see Detroit being able to afford that deal. So we should just really be happy that we got Levi right now for what we did. He talked about Brett Holmes, that is, talked about DJ Reed, said he fit us like a glove, which we all knew that. I think he's also was surprised that they got him back because he said they wanted to be in the corner market, but it exploded. I don't think they expected Carlton Davis to get 20 million a year.
Yeah, he had said, the get in the door entry price for a cornerback was 16 million.
Mm-hmm.
And that was higher than what they were anticipating having to spend. And I don't think he specifically said Carlton, but Brad Holmes said when he's talking about the financial decisions, the financial responsibilities, and everything, which was very cool that he was so upfront with it and just being, you could tell he's being 100% truthful and everything. But he admitted, he said, we lost some of our own guys because of financial reasons, and that's the first name that pops in your head is okay, Carlton. We wanted to keep Carlton. The dollar amount got to be too high.
Yeah, I think Zeitler's the other one that he's probably referencing too. The dollar amount just got to be too much, and he kept mentioning like next year's cap and 2027's cap. He just was mentioning that it's like not only affects next year but the following year. Another good set of news is that it sounded like he was pretty happy with Aiden's progress. Like he thinks that Aiden's going to be ready to go from the jump. He said he saw enough mobility and everything. Movement from Aiden. So I was happy to hear that straight from Brad Holmes.
Yes. I don't. Do you have Instagram? Are you ever on Instagram or you're not?
I'm not.
That's a lot of the players tend to be on Instagram more. And Hutch was on Instagram. He was sharing. There was like a golf outing, and he wasn't in a boot or anything like that. They were out there golfing. It was must have been for some sort of event because they were all wearing like the same color shirt and stuff. But it was Hutch, Hogan Hatton, Kyle Pecco, and then I forget there was one other person on the team. I can't remember who it was. But it was just cool to see. No boot or anything. He's out there moving, walking, looking comfortable. So
yeah, they showed him running. It was right after the Super Bowl or whatever. It showed him running.
Well,
and he looked,
yeah, but that wasn't.
Well, he looked a lot of hitch in his step. Like he didn't look like he was running too smooth. I mean, he was running, but it didn't look smooth at all. So
right, no. It we talked about that. It looked like he would not have been able to play in the Super Bowl.
No. And he talked about Aleem, and he's basically just confirming that it's going to be a little while on Aleem. So they had to make roster decisions. Probably going to affect the draft a little bit. They're going to have to come up with plans because they're not going to have Aleem, at the get go. And knowing this team, they take injuries very seriously and they take it slow. So, they might be November before we see Aleem, unfortunately.
Right. Just have to be prepared for it.
Yes, exactly. And then Dan Campbell talked with Dan Miller. He talked about getting home on the quarterback, finishing out finishing out sacks. We led in pressures, throughout the year, but we just didn't finish enough. He just talked about that, and he also talked. They asked him. Dan Miller asked him what hurt more. Did you see the interview with Dan Miller
I
and
did not see
okay.
Dan Campbell. No.
So it's like a 7-minute interview. It's pretty good. You should check it out. Dan Miller asked him straight up what hurt worse, the 49ers or the Commanders game. And Dan Campbell said loss is a loss. They both hurt. And he says that's, I think some of the team has said that the 49ers game will hurt worse just because of how close they were. I think with the Commanders game, there's the injury thing. So there's like, I don't want to say an excuse, but just, a reason behind the loss or reason why they didn't go too far. But Dan asks, what's your first message to the team? And he's like, the message stays the same. It's like, we need to work hard. We need to work harder to get where we need to go. Are you prepared to put in all the work that you need to do for what we need to do to get to where we want to go? So I think the message is going to be the same as, being disciplined and doing those type of things.
Right. It takes more.
It takes more. It's going to take even more. And hopefully, we just don't get injured as much. God. So
I know. It's interesting that he asked about that because I asked you that. We talked about that, and you said you thought the Commanders one was a little worse than the 49ers loss.
Yeah. I think for me it was. But it's also more recent
being there,
too.
and yeah, right. Recency
But also
wise.
being the number one seed and us like just not getting as far as last year, right? Or the previous year. It's just like I don't want to say it felt like a step back, but because we went 15-2.
It kind of did though. But I mean,
Yeah.
right, based on how the season went, for it to end that way, absolutely, with the injuries and everything,
Yeah. And for the various reasons that we talked about last time. But yeah, it was interesting that he asked Dan Miller asked Dan Campbell about that. I thought that was an interesting question to ask him.
Yeah, that whole time you said Dan said this, Dan asked
I know.
this, Dan.
Yeah.
They have the same name.
I know. Oops. Well,
Okay. It wasn't too hard to follow. You're fine.
No, good. I figured someone with 2 brain cells might be able to do it. So you was stuck with one. That's a little rough. Anyways, another thing that was voted on. I just found this out like shortly before we went live here. Is the NFL shortened the time needed for Thursday night flex games from 28 days to 21 days. So now between weeks 13 and 17, they can decide to flex a Sunday night game all the way back to a Thursday night game. I hated this idea last year, and now I hate it even more.
That blows. That's not ideal for anybody.
No. I mean, say you're a family and you got, you and I are going to think this in a family situation because we got kids, right? I'm going to take my kids to one game a season, and then all of a sudden it gets moved from Sunday to Thursday night.
Right.
How are we going to do
you
that?
Have to travel, maybe you take a long weekend off of work, you take a Monday off or something, and now all that's for nothing, and now it's on a Thursday.
Right. And like some of these people are buying plane tickets ahead of time. They're flying in or whatever. I just don't get it. And I know Amazon's paying billions of dollars or whatever. So it all comes down to that. I know that logically, but from a fan perspective, it sucks.
And Thursdays are not generally good football. Nobody on a short week or having different prep time and stuff. It just is not. The product is not as good.
Even when you put
especially if you're going to take these right. Well, that's what I was going to say. Especially if you're going to take these good teams late in the season and you're going to move these games up on them in a couple weeks' notice. Yeah, not a fan of that at all.
So none of the other rules that were in place have changed. Apparently, it's just the timing of it. So a team can't be flexed more than once. And you still can only play 2 Thursday night games following a Sunday night game. So I think you could play 3 Thursday games if one of the games doesn't follow
how we did the Thanksgiving and Thursday.
Thanksgiving, or you start out the season on a Thursday night, or maybe you had a bye week before your Thursday night game. I think there's like caveats in there, but in general, if it was up to me, I watch Thursday night football because it's on and football, and I love football. But if it was up to me, Thursday night football would be out. I would get rid of Thursday night football altogether.
I love being able to watch football during the week. I really like being able to watch Thursday
I
night,
do
Monday
too.
night football, but it just logistically is not, well, for the reasons we already said, the quality of football is not going to be as good.
I know. Well, they used to have like the college games on those other nights. I mean, I know when I was at Toledo, sometimes we play on a Tuesday night or whatever, and they
Right.
do that to get some exposure and stuff like that. And now with the betting, of course, they want to have, every game in a by itself because I'm sure that increases the live betting and all the things that go with it. There's a lot of, when, and all these networks are paying tons of money, and of course, they want to be the only game that's on at that time. But overall, I think there's some safety issues with it with players. Obviously they don't get the full rest. I think a lot of the players hate the lead up to the Thursday, but they do like the extra half bye week afterwards. I think some of them live with it because of that. Um, if it
I
was
guess
up,
pros and cons.
yeah, if it was up to me, if they would go to this 18 game schedule, my caveat would be, if you play a Thursday day game, you don't play the Sunday before. Like if you end up getting like 2 bye weeks, I think they'd be able to somehow work that in. And then that would solve the issue of the football not being as good because you'd have like a week and a half to prepare for that game or
Right.
a little over a week and a half. Um, and then you would still get the players would still get, Thursday till the following Sunday, they would still get some time off. I could see how that could work, and that will be negotiated in the next CBA, I'm sure. But that'd be if you're going to give 2 bye weeks, then you at least one of those. If you're going to play 2 Thursday night games, at least one of them has to be after a bye week or something like that.
If they were really able to stretch that out, they'd have to do something like that.
I hope so because
Before I forget, I just want
yeah,
to bring it up because you had mentioned
yeah,
the Toledo thing and
yeah,
like MAC football on like Tuesday nights or whatever. There was a
yeah.
game, and I want to say it was like Toledo versus maybe Central Michigan, and it was broadcast, so it was on ESPN. The fog was so bad that it was like you couldn't see the field. Do you remember that?
I don't a lot of my stuff at Toledo I don't remember too much. The Bruce
Party
Gradkowski
school.
was, huh? I was
I
no,
said party school.
no, I was no, that was my party school was previous at Western Michigan University. Shout outs to Jason Lamersey who listens to this podcast. He knows what I'm about there. At Toledo, and it was all school. I was a good student there, but we Pittsburgh came to town when Larry Fitzgerald was on the team, and they were like 7th ranked, and Toledo beat them. That was one I met. Remember, I don't remember a fall game. I'm sure I was probably around. Do you remember what time period that was, or?
I don't. I was trying to see exactly when it was, and
Yeah.
I'm on Google right now. Some say 2016, 2019. I was thinking like 2004, 2005. I was
Oh,
thinking it was way
yeah,
earlier than that.
yeah. That might
So
have been
Google has
that.
failed me right now, but
Okay, that would have been more my time when I was there because I graduated in '08. But yeah, Toledo football's fun. The stadium's like right on campus, on main campus. I like that. Western's is on main camp. Western Michigan's is on it's a little bit off campus. So Toledo's like right in the middle of campus. I love that. I just love that atmosphere. It was so
right.
I like yeah. It's MAC football. I know is not Big Ten football, but you know, being part of two of those schools, I could dig it.
Two of my nephews played for Kent State, so I actually got to
Okay.
see them play at Toledo and Bowling Green. So
Okay. Yeah.
it was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, we we were had Sarah and I it was homecoming for Western one year. My wife and I were and going to Western was playing Bowling Green, and so the Western chant was BGSUCKS because it's Bowling Green State University, so it was BG sucks. But Sarah kept screwing it up and going BGSUSUCKS. I'm like, no, the SU is part of it, and that's all I remember from that. I might have been a little inebriated, and I'm sure she was too. But yeah, she kept getting the chant wrong. It was
Nice.
hilarious. Yeah. Uh,
That's great.
the other thing at the owners meeting, and they're going to be voting on this Tuesday morning. So by the time some people are listening to this, the outcome's going to already be known. But the banning the tush push, where do you stand on that?
I go back and forth on it. I mean, it doesn't feel like an actual football play. It does seem like, okay, there is something weird about it. It doesn't seem like a real football play to me. It does seem a little bit. I don't want to use the word unfair because that's the other side of it is that if it really was such a guarantee, then everybody would be doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But the Eagles having the line they have, having Hurts, especially now that they have Saquon, like, it's the players doing that also. Mm-hmm. But I just don't feel like it's a very good football play. So I guess if I was voting, I would be in favor of banning it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where are you at?
Yeah, I don't like the play, but I also think it's because, we have Jared Goff and he's not going to be running that. So if I was the Eagles, I'd be like, Dan Campbell's said, if you don't like it, stop it. And maybe that's why you get Roy Lopez and have DJ Reader. You're gearing up to stop a play of that nature. They're going to also, the argument you hear is about player safety too. And I got to imagine that's real. I mean, that's a lot of weight right there. And you're just, you got one guy it feels like a concert, and someone's getting smashed against the wall. It's only a matter of time before someone gets really hurt. But every play is like that in the NFL, right? So, I mean, you could make that argument for any type of play. I know I'm going back and forth, but I don't think they should ban it because I don't like it or the team, one team is really good at it and the rest of the NFL is not as good at it. But if they could show that there's a safety issue, then I would say, yes, you need to ban it just on that alone.
It just doesn't feel. It almost feels like it should be an illegal formation, but it's it's basically the same formation as if you were to kneel the ball.
Yeah,
it is just one of those things where I want to say, was it the Commanders or who was it that was like they jumped offside so much?
Oh, that was Commanders. That was a playoff game. That
right.
Was...
So the refs had to say we can award a score if you keep doing that, but you can't. You just really can't defend that because when you're on defense, you're, at the mercy of the quarterback or at them snapping the ball, right? You can't move. You can't get any sort of pressure until they snap the ball. And by the time they snap the ball, by the time it touches Jalen Hurts' hands, they've already got at least a couple inches on you. They've already started the pressure that way. Yep. So you're going from a still position to then you're having to push back on this pressure. It's just too much.
I know.
I mean, even if you were to find a way to get all 11 people right there in the middle, then obviously they could, fake or do whatever they're going to try to do with that. But, I think even if you did find a way to get all 11 defenders in the middle, they would still be able to do that.
Yeah, I think it'd be
because they only need a yard, and they get almost that yard instantly.
And I mean, some teams stop it. I think the Jaguars stopped the Eagles doing it twice in a row. But for most of the league, it's just too hard to stop. Also, what I don't want to see it turn into is like all of a sudden it's 3rd and 2, and now we're just going to run this play twice. And
right.
That's just
Which
boring.
They have.
And they have,
right.
And it's just boring football. Then it's a fight to get 8 yards in 2 plays, and then we can just run this automatic play that gets a first down. And that's the slippery slope of all this is that it turns into very boring football that is like, okay, 90% of the time this play works. I don't like that. I mean, I just think that's boring to watch. So I would want to ban it just on that, but I don't think I can ban it just based on because it works. I don't.
Okay, well, you talked about it. So let's say you have a vote. You're voting tomorrow morning. You have a vote. Are you voting to ban it? Yes or no?
Oh man. So
you already talked about it. Don't talk yourself out again. Yes or no?
I would vote. I don't want it in the NFL. I don't want it. I don't like watching that play. So I mean, I would vote no on that account. But also, I realize that
you get one vote. The rules are you voting to ban it? Yes or no?
But I'm not gonna fault someone else for arguing the other way because I'm
no. And you explained our case. I was just saying, like for you, like you have a final vote. If
I was voting, I don't want it in the NFL. But also, like, how are you gonna officiate that? Are you banning anytime someone pushes? Because David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs get pushed by our offensive line a lot, like outside of that pocket, not in a tush push play. So, are we banning anything that can be pushed forward? Or I know the wording is like it says immediate. But like they're gonna have to change that wording because what's immediate? There's like like do you have a certain? Can you?
You have to
step?
count to 5 apple before you can
Yeah,
touch him.
exactly. Red Rover, send Jalen Hurts over. I don't know. I
I do
just
think that's
think
the part that makes it, harder to defend. And what, is the fact that, like I said, as soon as he touches the ball, you've got 3 people behind him. So basically,
Mhm.
the force of 4 grown men in the backfield plus the 3 or 4 up front that are pushing before you even have a chance. Yep. So maybe that is it. If he's lined up under center, then he's not allowed to be assisted past the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
So if you're going to try something like that, you line up from shotgun and you have to run up there and try it.
Because you're going to see other teams. I mean, you've seen it. Like the Packers ran Tucker Kraft. I think they ran him across motion, right, and then they pushed him. He'll stop midstream. I know the Packers are the ones that want. You're the ones that put up to get rid of the tush push. I Yeah, I know I talk a little bit. I could see both point of views, but for my personal taste, I want it out of there. But also, I don't know if I would, if I was officially voting, I don't know if I'd vote just because of my personal taste of not liking that play. I don't know if that's necessarily fair. So I'd have to if I had the official vote. But
I think the cons outweigh the pros unless you are an Eagles fan right now.
Yeah.
If you're in the Eagles organization, you're an Eagles fan, you like it, you want to keep it. If you're not, then I don't think anyone, and it's not like we've had specific instances where it's been unfairly used against us or, so I'm not really speaking out of it's just not fair that they're doing this to us over and over again. But, I just don't feel like it's a football play.
No. Yeah, I'm with you on that. So we'll see. I think we're at least a year away from it getting banned or some sort of rule change allowing it. I don't think they're gonna end up doing it this year, but we'll see tomorrow morning. There are plenty of people coming out, and most of it on the medical side, and I think people are looking for other excuses to say that they don't want it in there. So they're gonna, say that use the medical thing. Um, but there are going to be other rule changes. We'll talk about those maybe next week, depending on what gets voted on, and then also I think we've said before, Jeremy's going to come out with our rules podcast. We're going to have a longer one during the off season at some point, and so we'll get into anything in that point. So. Let's move on a little bit. Real quickly here. ESPN put out ratings of the Lions free agent class. We come in rated at number 4, which for a lot of our fans that didn't, clamoring us for get more, we're up to number 4, which I thought was really interesting. Were you surprised to see us rated at number 4?
I was very surprised. I thought this was going to be one of those things where they rated us number 30, and then we were going to have to defend ourselves in the comments, and
Yeah.
So to be number 4, almost feels too high. But it's one of those things, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yep.
We need another cornerback, really, and then we lost Carlton. We replaced it with DJ Reed. So, and we've got cornerback depth now. I mean, like we already said before, it wasn't flashy or anything. So,
yeah, Minnesota came in at number 3, which we knew we spent a lot of money. I was kind of surprised that Chicago come in at number 15 because they spent a fair amount of money too, but I don't think people thought that they spent their money effectively.
It was on the line though, also not flashy, right? So I mean,
right.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what they needed. So I think that they were trying to do the right thing there.
Oh yeah, no, I feel like, in my opinion, I feel like they had a really good offseason.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see how it translates on the field and whatnot. And then Green Bay always, last year was an anomaly. Last offseason when they spent some money in free agency. This year they they spent some money, and but they really just re-signed their own, and I can get all that. Is if you draft well, then you can do that. I mean, Green Bay typically drafts pretty well. The power rankings come out. And Lions come in at number 3. Let's see here. NFL, that was on ESPN. NFL.com has us at number 5, and PFS has us at number 3. So they're liking our roster. They liking the moves that we make. So I'm happy that we're at the top. It's nice for us to spend the offseason up in this top 5. I love it.
Right. Getting the recognition we deserve, right?
right? But we are not the only division team in the top 10. Both Green Bay and Minnesota are in top 10 for most of these publications. Uh, Chicago, ESPN has them ring at 22, which I was kind of surprised with, them hiring Ben Johnson and all that to have them break down that low. NFL.com has the Bears at number 16, and PFF has them rated at 15. So Chicago's kind of, all over there. Um, Green Bay and Minnesota both hover right around in the 8 to 10 range.
I think that's fair.
I think
I
it's
think the
fair
Bears are
too.
probably closer to 15, 16 rather than 22.
I'm not convinced about Green Bay though, to be honest with you. I don't know. I mean, it all hinges on Jordan Love. Like, was it the injury last year that he didn't play that well, or is that really Jordan Love? Because if he plays like that the whole season, they're not going to go far.
Right.
And they didn't do. I know they got the draft here, but they didn't do much to upgrade their wide receiver room, and their wide receiver room it's just they don't catch the ball. There's a lot of drops there, and we'll see.
Yeah, they were rumored around a lot of the top names, and as of right now, they still don't have anybody.
No. Stephon Diggs was the latest wide receiver to drop, and of course, he went to the Patriots, whose Patriots are just spending oodles of money. Um,
Hey,
you
they
know,
got all that cap space, right?
they do well. They got that rookie quarterback deal, right? So they could spend that money. Uh, Amari Cooper's still out there, so he might be a shop, but he's obviously he's not in any hurry to sign. He wants to get his money, and he's just going to wait for you know probably after the draft at this point, someone doesn't get the wide receiver they need, and they're going to come calling Amari Cooper.
For sure.
All right. Let's move on. The draft's coming up next week. We're going to have a guest on, and, we were supposed to have a guest today. Had a family situation, had to cancel last minute. So we were going to talk a little bit more about the draft today originally. Next week is going to be very draft heavy with our guest. If that works out. So I'm excited about that. So first question I'm going to have asked you, Jacob, before we take off here today. What is your overall draft philosophy or preference? Are you a trade up guy? Are you a trade down guy? Do you do you have a preference, I guess?
I don't have a preference. I think, you get your draft forward, you find the guys that you like. If you really like somebody and you're like, this guy would be perfect for the team, we really need to have him on the team. I'm 100% okay with trading up, to grab him. I do not like, trading up into like the top 3 or 4. I feel like that costs too much, and the return that you would get generally, like for this year anyway, in years past, if we have the 7th or 8th pick or something like that, and we want to try to trade up higher, maybe. Right now, we're late at the end of the first round. It would cost a lot to try to trade up like top 10. So I think if we've got somebody that we really like that we think is going to be there around like 15 ish or something like that, we start calling and making moves and move up. I'm okay with that. I'm also okay, especially with the way that Brad Holmes has been drafting, that, hey, we've had a couple guys that we liked. None of them are there right now. We've got, 2 or 3 guys that have second round grades on. Let's just trade back out of the first round and try to get an extra. We get a second round pick next year. We get a first round pick next year. Stockpile some of the draft picks. I'm okay either way. I think it's a case by case thing. I know some people are all about like, trade up, sell the future, trade up. And then you have other people that are, stockpiling second and third round picks and just hoping that they find a diamond in the rough. Where is your stance, though? Where are you feeling?
I typically think you get better value by trading back. I just always think that draft is a crapshoot. Really, when you look at it history wise, you don't know. You know, everyone thinks they know, but they don't know. Uh, but my trust in Brad Holmes has me thinking differently. I look back at the 2023 draft, the way he worked that out, where we're trading back and we're getting Jameer Gibbs and Laporta, but then second round we trade up and get a Brian Branch. So like that was like the best case scenario of both of those things. We trade back, we end up getting the player that we wanted anyways in Jameer Gibbs, and then we end up getting Sam Laporta in the deal. but then we use some of that capital and we move back up and get another guy where we went Brian Branch. I think that for me, it's like you you have all these guys on your draft board and you have them in tiers. And the last thing you want to do is grab a guy at the top of a tier when there's like 15 other guys graded similarly. So if you're gonna trade up, you better trade up to a tier that you wouldn't be able to draft in, to begin with. So you want if you're drafted at 28 and your tier one guys end at 23, you're not trading up to 24 to get a guy that wasn't in tier one, because you could just stay at 28 and get someone of equal value without giving up something. And this draft, and every draft is different too, right? You have
Right.
some drafts that are super top heavy that maybe you only have like 12, true first round graded guys, you know, so it makes sense to back up and then get, extra picks. But you got to find a trade partner that it makes sense, right? You're not going to trade back just to trade back. You got to get, good value for what you're trading back for. So that's always a caveat. I mean, you got to find a good draft partner. This draft is kind of, I think, the one of those drafts where it's top heavy, and then like people through 15 through 40 are all, in the same boat. So like if you could somehow get an extra pick, an extra second round pick, you might end up getting two really good players rather than, sitting at where we're at. You might get, you know, let's just say you get, like a Gray Zabel or something like that offensive line. There might be, Donovan Jackson might be in the same bucket as him. So you might be able to trade back, pick an extra third or fourth round pick, and then still get a guy of similar value to the guy you would have drafted at 28. So I can go back and forth. I tend to think trading back is the way to move, but when you got a guy like Brad Holmes, if there's a guy that you're looking at, like Terrion Arnold, sliding back last year, it made total sense to trade up and get him, because all the defensive players were sliding, and the guy that should have went in the teens was still there at 23, and you didn't have to give up a ton to move up. From where were we at last year, 29 or something like that, to go up and get him.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like, again, this year, picking late in the first round, there's going to be teams calling. There's going to be teams trying to slide back into the first round.
Yes.
So if your guy's already gone off the board, like you said, you got some, couple similar second round prospects, why not trade back and get more draft capital?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, get an extra third, get the second, whatever that may be. But then that's also potential for future, maybe you trade back in the second round, but now we want to trade up further into the second round to get both these guys we have our eyes on. So,
yep. And then
they're very smart about the way they draft, which has not always been the case around here, right?
No. Well, before it was like first round, yeah, we do pretty decent in the first round, mostly because we're picking in the top 5, and those players are more of a, if anything's a sure thing, they are. You get the Jeff Okudas every once in a while that bust out when you're up there, but it was like the second round picks were always reaches, and we just couldn't count on any of those guys. Well, Brad Holmes drafted 2 all pros, or well, Brian Branch is going to be an eventual all pro in the second round. So we've had, swear, a lot of it comes down to the guy that's drafting too. Trading back was always an option with the previous guys, because I would rather give them 5 lottery tickets than 2 lottery tickets. Where Brad Holmes, it doesn't feel like it's necessarily a lottery ticket, because they do so much planning, and they have a plan of what type of player they want. So I'm more apt with Brad Holmes to like go up and get your guy, because I trust Brad Holmes and he's gonna get the right guy. Whereas previous regimes, trading back was always, that's what all Lions fans always want to do: trade back and get a bunch of picks, but it was the people making the picks. It didn't matter. They were making crap picks, so it didn't matter how many picks, unless we were just gonna get really lucky with it. All right. Before we head out, let's talk about your position. What do you think the Lions are going to draft? Like, you rank your position and needs for the Lions. I have 4 positions that I have. So, do you want me to go first? Or you want to go first?
You can go first.
All right. So my rank of positions of need for Lions are defensive line and offensive line is the second. We're gonna need to get younger and in one of those in those positions. Defensive line, obviously, we know we had so many injuries last year, and people we brought back, Davenport for sure. We can't totally count on. The sleeper one that I see coming is a wide receiver that we could draft him because depending on what happens with JMO, and then also safety. I think we're gonna have to safeguard it, that we couldn't sign uh, Kirby or Branch at some point. When their extension time to extend them are up, we're gonna have to have a contingency plan in place. So I could see safety in play here. Where are you at?
Yeah, so I have one edge. That's the number one thing that I think that we need. One, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what we're going to draft first, but I say one edge, 2 guard / offensive linemen, 3 defensive tackle, 4 I put safety, 5 I put wide receiver, and then I actually put 6 on here linebacker.
Okay.
Interesting question to you now, though, because neither of us put it on there. But do you think we draft a cornerback this year?
Oh, man.
We have 7 picks. Would you say we draft a corner to add to that room or no?
Man, Brad Holmes will never pass up if he's got a corner ranked high. Like there's that guy Barron. Is it Jahari Barron? I think. I could see if he fell to like 28. I think Brad Holmes would be
you
like,
think even first round maybe corner?
If a guy fell and he's in Brad Holmes is going to take a talented guy, and so I think that I don't. He's not going to do needs-based drafting. I think we have way better needs, especially. But DJ Reed is really, when you look at that deal, it is like a 2-year deal. So if you're taking, if you take a corner, like say you get a corner in the second round or third round, you give him a little time to develop. We're going to need someone to come in. Brad Holmes talked about Rakestraw a lot, saying that we only got like 46 snaps of Rakestraw last year. We don't really know what we have, and if we knew more, then maybe they would feel better about it because you'd have Terry on Arnold Rakestraw. I think Meek's on his last year of his deal. DJ's only signed for 2 years. We're gonna have Terry on for a while. First round pick. We'll have him. At least I would say 5 years if he's good. If we want to keep him, we at least got him for 3 more years. So,
what was the corner's name that you said?
Is it Jahari Barron? I'm pretty sure that's who it is.
Okay. Jade Barron, it looks like.
Yeah, okay.
Well, when you said that, I was like, man, that name doesn't sound familiar, but now I see.
Yeah, he is like
prospect ranked number 11 overall.
Yeah,
so.
but there's like talks of him, I'm just saying if he slips down, I could see something like that happening where the value
absolutely.
is too good that you're gonna draft.
And that's one of those things we were talking about. Like that guy's falling. That's a Brad Holmes move to be like, okay, you know what? We like this guy. We didn't think there was a chance he'd be here. We're gonna go get him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there any other names that you have though, like people sleeper picks or?
Did you I don't have any sleeper picks, but I tell you the guy that I think is realistic. I don't know if he'll be there, but if he falls, Kenneth Grant from Michigan. If he falls,
okay,
that's who I want because he fits like what we need. Because Lopez is signed for 1 year. You have DJ Reader in his last year deal, and I don't really see Reader coming back. We need a guy that can stop the run, and also he has a little pass rush in him, right? And I know a Michigan guy, but I think that he's a good fit for the team. So I would say Kenneth Grant, if he falls, that's the guy that I would be very happy with getting in the first round, picking at number 28. Or if we had to trade up a few picks, I'd be okay with that too, depending on how we had to give up. How about you?
No, I would be cool with that. I have just a few people on the list, but these are all. What I did is I just put 5 people on here that I think would be home runs.
Okay, yeah.
And these are people that are most likely not going to be on the board. But if they're there at 28, would be a huge get for us.
Yeah.
The 2 edge defenders I have on here, Mike Green out of Marshall. Okay. I know you heard me talk about him like weeks ago when they first did the Senior Bowl practices and stuff. But just somebody that kind of burst out of nowhere as far as the mock scheme went. Edge Mike Green and James Pierce out of Tennessee.
Okay.
those would be huge, massive gets. I'm sure they're not going to be there, but those are, the two edge that I have. Defensive tackle Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss.
Okay.
Kind of similar along the same with Kenneth Grant. And then offensive tackle Will Campbell out of LSU. I don't know if you've heard, but I mean, he was supposed to be like top 5, one of the top offensive linemen. And there's one of those things where all of a sudden his arms are too short and like the process, there are too many people getting way too analytical about this. And now his arms are too short, and now all of a sudden his stock is plummeting, I guess. From what the rumors are saying. Who knows whether that's really true or not, but his tape and everything warrants like a top 5 pick, and now they're talking that he might be going the 20s.
Yeah, have you seen the thing that, the measurements, the guy that did the measurements or whatever at the combine, they said he did them incorrectly. And so like at the pro day, his arms came up a little bit longer. I don't know. I don't think Will Campbell's going to fall, but if he does, you best believe that he's going to be in a Detroit Lions uniform.
Right. And then the other one is the linebacker, Jihad Campbell.
Yeah, I see Jihad.
Amazing.
Yeah, I don't think Pierce is going to end up with the Lions. He doesn't defend the run as well from what I read, so I'd be shocked about that. I just have 2 offensive linemen on mine that I didn't mention. Gray Zabel, he's from North Dakota State. He's could play pretty much all up and down the line, but guard play, and then he might even be able to move over into center. And then an Ohio State guy, Donovan Jackson, I've seen his name pop up. He's like one of those guys that I was just talking about that, in the same bubble. So if they're both available and you could trade back, you might do that, hoping that one of those guys, is still there trading back. The edge guy that I do like is Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M.
Yeah.
When you look at mocks, it's all over the place, man. I see somewhere he's up in the 10s, and then I see somewhere he's mocked to the Lions. So I don't know where that happens. Edge guys tend to go higher, so I gotta believe that the Lions would have to trade up a little bit for him if they wanted to
kind
go
of
that
depends
route.
on how the dominoes fall and how quick the other guys go too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the other guys you mentioned, Gray Zabel, Donovan Jackson, those are both people that are probably going to be there, going to be pretty close. So a lot of the mocks have them, those are realistic picks.
Yep.
And I could see either of those happening.
Yes. My other pick, and it goes back to corner, is the corner from Michigan, Will Johnson. I just like that guy, so I know he won't make it because he's a top 10 pick. But that was just my other dream, that he somehow falls in those 20s like Terrion did, and the Lions go, we need to get this guy. But I don't think he falls past 10, 11, 12 at the latest.
Would you be satisfied? Well, would you be satisfied if we traded up and drafted a cornerback? And now let's say it's not either of the two that you just said, so that we kind of go off like the next one on the list is Maxwell Hairston.
Yeah.
So it's a cornerback out of Kentucky. He's the one who ran the fastest 40. So if we traded up, let's say we trade up from 28 to 23, and then we end up drafting cornerback, would you be happy with that, or would you be let down?
Just the position in general, I'd be like, man, I really think that we need trench help. That's where I think that we need. However, I will trust Brad Holmes that I'll listen to reason as opposed to jump off and flying off the handle saying that, what are you doing? Because I know it looks like we're set at corner now, but we're really, you're 2 years away from not being set at corner, and that's a really important position on the field. So, and I don't think Brad Holmes will ignore that position ever again, as bad as we were like his first 2.5, 3 years at corner. I just don't think, I think that's going to always be a priority for him now. He talked about getting DJ Reed. He said he's going to be in the corner market, so he knows that we needed help there. I know that everybody wants an edge, and I do too. But Aiden Hutchinson is so good, and I think that we've just got used to him being having injury, that we just need someone on the other side of him. But when he was there, even when he was by himself, like, when we said we didn't have anybody on the other side, he was still doing otherworldly things. And so I don't think it's as big of a need as some people are saying, but I also think getting to the quarterback is important. So I also see the need there, but I'm not as gung ho about getting an edge as I am maybe an offensive lineman, because we're counting on Mahogany to come in and play well, and we don't know that for sure. We don't know. He's a small sample size. We don't know that he's going to come in and do well. And if Graham takes another step back, we could be in trouble. And I could see, I want to have, first round talent in there, and we got that would help to have some cheap offensive line help. Um,
Wouldn't you say though that the fall off from like the top 5 edge defenders to the next like 5 or 10 that you would get in the second round? Wouldn't you say that the fall off is greater between the edge defenders than it's going to be for the guards or interior offensive linemen?
yeah, oh yeah, for sure. And that's why I say that there's a little bit of a bucket there, and where we're picking, we might be able to trade back and be able to get that. I think for an edge though, those tend to come off early, and just like quarterback, like if you don't get one early, you're in tier 2 or 3, and you're not going to get your best bang for your buck. So you might have to prepare to trade up a little bit to get a good edge guy. I don't know if we're going to be able to get one of the talent level that we'd want opposite of Hutch at 28. I think he'd have to be up in the low 20s, maybe even in the teens to get someone. We'll see.
Right. I'd agree with that. I mean, you'd have to be you'd have to know something about somebody that nobody else does. Yeah. And if he's a good edge defender, he's not going to be hiding there at 28. Everyone's going to know about him.
Yeah. It's just like one of those, if quarterback, you're going to get drafted high and you're going to get overdrafted. Edge defenders are kind of the same way. When you look at, I know Max Crosby's a 4th-round guy or whatever, but, that's also like saying, well, Tom Brady's a 6th-round guy. You can get a quarterback in the 6th round. No, Brock Purdy's and Tom Brady's are very rare things that happen, and edge defenders kind of falls that same thing. They tend to get overdrafted because everyone wants one. And so when you're picking at 28, you're picking a guy that is probably a 3rd rounder, right? Because everyone's overdrafted at that position. So we'll see. I mean, I trust Brad Holmes. He will find that guy, and I don't think that he ignores it. Like some other people think that he does, but he is disciplined in his approach and isn't going to overspend on any position.
Right. There's no hitting the panic button right now.
No, but in the second round when we draft Jalen Milroe, then everyone will have a story to talk about. Yeah. Oh man. All right. So all right, real quick before we go, we were talking about the draft. The NFL draft hats come out, and I have thoughts, and I know you have thoughts. I'm gonna show a picture of them real quick here. Let's see here. Let's get. All right. There we go. There's what they are. They got like some feathers or whatever on, or a vine or whatever on the bill. Blue. It says Lions, the Lions logo, and then it says Motor City under there. Are you a fan of these hats? Yay or nay?
It's okay. I mean, the thing is, they always have to try to do something new with these draft hats. Comparatively, like to some of the other teams, I definitely think that ours is better than some of the other teams. The big sell on these is the custom pin. So I don't know if you saw that or if you can tell on there, but that's an actual pin that's on.
Okay, I was wondering. Okay,
and ours is a wheel.
Okay.
Motor City. Ours is a wheel. Yeah. Some of these teams, their pins make no sense to me. And we've got the cool Motor City thing, but some teams, like I think the Steelers, it says Steelers and then it says Pittsburgh, PA. They don't have anything cool on there. I don't know what their pin is, but I was trying to look at some of the other teams' pins just to see. You think Packers, their pin's probably going to be cheese, right? A piece of cheese. No, it's a bicycle.
A bicycle?
A bicycle. And I was like, okay, well, what is that? It says Packers, Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's a bicycle. It says it symbolizes the tradition of Packers players riding fans' bikes in a training camp.
All right. Well,
Like,
maybe that
right,
means
okay, I guess, but to everyone else who doesn't know about that tradition, it just looks stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this hat. I don't like that. I don't like the design on the bill. I don't like
That's on
that.
all the teams too.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know
not.
what they were going for there. If it's a vine or like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that. Also, it's too wordy. Lions, Motor City. There's too much words on the hat, and I would rather have my logo be a little bit bigger. I could care less about the pins. I don't know. I wouldn't wear it if I was, that's not important to me. Um, and then also, the fit of the hat with all the big words. It's gonna be one of those tall hats. They don't look good on me. I don't, wouldn't look good with that. So I wouldn't want that. I don't like those hard hats. I like more of a soft, like front hat, so it'll conform to my head a little bit more. But does that have any? I mean, do you wear hats like that?
I do. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like the pin would bother me. The
Yeah.
actual hat itself, I'm okay with. I think that's okay. I like the Honolulu blue bill. I like the Lions. I like the Motor City thing. I don't know. Usually there's a logo on the other side. Is
Yeah.
that, can you flip the other side? Is it just,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
just
there's nothing there. Yeah,
there's
so that
just
is
the
kind of weird.
NFL logo on the NFL logo on the back there. So yeah, it's I don't know. Maybe I'm
Yeah, I
old
don't
man in
think that
this, but
right, not a very good win, but like the pin thing is funny to me. The Bears pin, it is the flag of Chicago.
okay.
Why? We couldn't get anything better than that.
Eh.
The Commanders pin is a pig.
Well, probably. Well,
Let's see here.
is
The
that political or
Browns,
the Hogs? Hogs
the
for their
Hogs, yeah,
offensive. Yeah. Yep.
the Browns is a guitar. Trying to see.
Oh, for Hall of
See the
Fame.
Vikings, it's like a Viking helmet. That's
Okay.
cool. I get it, But some of the teams, I feel like they just got shafted here. They're not very cool pins.
Yeah.
And the
Well,
Bears, it just says Bears, Chicago, Illinois. Like, thanks, we know where they're from.
yeah. I'm not done with the pins. That's just too much. I don't know. I'm not showy like that either.
But
So
they make a big deal out of these draft hats every year. So obviously, inevitably, it's gonna, you're running out of ideas. What else are you gonna do?
yeah. Well, some of
They
I
should
mean,
just use a different draft logo, like 2025 NFL draft, and
well, that would be simple, but no one wants simple, right? Someone's got to
well, not
say
when
I
you're
gotta get
trying
paid.
to charge $50, $60 for a hat. You got to make it special.
So, speaking of hats, I got to tell you something that happened to me this weekend. Uh, so you wear your hat forward, right? I'm usually wear my hat backwards. I was in Indianapolis visiting some friends. They kind of live in an upscale neighborhood. They have this clubhouse that they go to. So I went in there with my son. We were playing basketball. We went in to go get something to drink in the clubhouse. It's also like a golf clubhouse.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
sitting down with my son and I'm eating French fries. And the manager comes up and said, "How you doing today, fellas?" And I thought he was just saying hi and being nice. And then he tells me that I got dress coded. I was like, "You can't wear your hat backwards in here, sir." And I had to turn my hat around. I haven't been dress coded ever. 45-year-old man getting dress coded.
Nice.
And I was like, "But I like Ken Griffey Jr. and he always wore his hat backwards. That was what it was cool when I was a kid."
Oh, is
But
that the connection?
yeah, no, I
Oh,
don't know. That's just the way I've always
I
worn
was
my
gonna
hat
say I
backwards.
can rock with that. I like Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah, I mean, it probably stems from that. Like, I was 10 when Ken Griffey was out. He always wore his hat backwards.
I
I just
thought it
don't.
was just because it masks your baldness a little better.
Yeah, that's why I wear a hat, but maybe not why I wear it backwards. I wearing it forwards. Sometimes the bill gets in my way of my vision, so I just like to wear. I think it's more comfortable for me to ride. It's not a fashion statement of any
The
so.
bill gets in the way of your vision.
It does.
How are
Like,
you wearing your hat?
I don't know. Maybe because I told you I don't like it. I don't like it too high. It makes my forehead look big. So if I wear it too low, then I don't know. It's just more comfortable to wear it backwards. It's not a fashion statement or anything like that. I have to wear a hat outside or else I get scalded. My head will get scalded, so I have to wear a hat. But this is the way I choose to wear. But I was just like, I was. Uh, I just said, "Okay, sir," and I turned my hat around. I felt like I was like a little kid, and I just got scolded, and I was like, "Oh," and then
You got
afterwards,
in trouble.
you're like, did it matter that my hat was backwards in there? Like, like, am I wearing gang signs? And I didn't do the nose swipe gesture at all. I promise you. I
Yeah.
just was in there eating French fries with my son, having a tea and French fries. That's all we were doing. Just cooling off after playing some basketball.
That's weird because it's not like you were there to play golf, right? So
No.
you're not like in your polo shirt playing basketball and
No.
everything. So I don't. Yeah, that seems weird.
Yeah, so I was kind of shocked by it, but
These
it's a good story.
These golf clubs, they don't mess around.
They don't. I was like, I was like, I'm wearing a t-shirt. Next thing they're gonna tell me is I can't wear a t-shirt in here. It's not, and it's not like I blatantly broke the rules. I didn't know that was a rule, but I felt.
Well, that's probably why he came up cool about it at first instead of just, what's your problem?
Right. Well, also then I was like, then I just felt totally out of place. Like I don't, it's not my vibe. I just want.
Was it your Lions hat?
No, it was.
Okay, I was gonna say because if you're
it's my Tigers hat.
It
was my Tigers hat. It was Tigers hat. They don't have a baseball team down there, so I mean they have a minor league team, but they don't have a baseball team there. So it wasn't too much in their face. But yeah, it was not my Lions hat. So I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting story. I don't know if anyone else has been dress coded before or been caught off guard by a dress code that they. But yeah, it's like
Jason's shorts were too short. That was the last time he got dress coded.
Sir, your hand, when you reach down your hand, they should touch short, not skin. That's
your Daisy Dukes. Daisy Dukes are too short.
Exactly. No, that's definitely not me. I am shorts to my knees type guy. So, all right, man. I think it's time to wrap up here. We'll find out what these votes are going to be like, and we'll have plenty to talk about, I'm sure, next week. And we're going to be draft heavy next week. Big guest. Hopefully that all works out. I'm not going to say anything to try to jinx it, but stay tuned next week. We're super happy if this all falls together. Anything else, Jacob?
No, man, I'm good.
All right, man. Well, I get to work with you tomorrow, so that'll be good. And both be there. Are you closing or are you opening tomorrow?
I'm early. I'm opening tomorrow.
All right, I'm opening too, so be there bright and early. So, all right, man. Well, for Jacob, I'm Jason. Go Lions! All right. There. That was an hour.